potato bush. It's not showing up at the moment. Okay, so we'll just leave it in there. Can't hurt. Okay. Any other energy? Oh, what about energy mismatch to where you're living right now? So just hold your energy for a moment and imagine where you are and imagine how it makes you feel. Do you feel at home? Do you feel safe? Do you feel protected? Do you feel secure? Do you have good friends? You know, what is it about this place that makes you feel really centered and grounded? And start to release the rest. So in relation to where you are living right now. Oh man. Oh no, that's just gone.
That's really...
Wow. Okay. If you need to, oh God, I'm going to yawn. I'm sure you see that with your clients too, sometimes when you have someone having a big emotional shift.
Yawning's good.
Yawning's good.
Sighing's good.
Sighing's good. One of my good friends, Linda, she burps.
Not.
Well, this for her.
It's for her.
She wouldn't have been able to continue doing kinesiology when she was pregnant with her daughter unless that's when she developed it. And her daughter's 15 now or something. So it's pretty bad. It's a full-blown burp.
I used to love it when she did massive burps because you knew that was a huge shift. The first time I was a bit concerned, but after I knew what it was.
Yeah, people would come out and go, oh my gosh, she's got such issues. And I'd go, why? And they'd say, oh, because she burped the whole way. And I went, oh my God, you had some big emotional releases then. It's good to warn people about these things.
I'm lucky, I just do.
The size. Yeah. I'm more a yawner. Okay, so do we need anything else online before we kick into the survival stuff? There's something else we need. Actually, we might see where you're stuck within the grief gauge around the move as well. Actually, this is Gordon Dixon's work, so this is the developmental directory. It sort of works out whether or not there was a time in your past when something got jammed and it stopped you from being able to, okay. Okay, so 9 months to 3 years old, was this in your life being 9 months to 3 years old or 9 months to 3 year old from the move? No. So it's in your life from 9 months to 3 years, so 9 months to 1 to 1.5 to 2, 1.5 to 2. So 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 8, 1, 9, 1, 10, about 1 year, 10 months.
So it might have been a family move or some big move.
Messed with your ability to be curious, motivated, confident. Maybe, or a birth of a sibling or something like that. Even parents getting a new job or something like that can quite impact if the feeling in the household's different, if the parents are more stressed or something like that. So something happened at 1 year, 10 months.
Or even they moved house or something, uprooted you from something like that. Just be the most...
Yeah, so in our life, that 9 months to 3 years is about differentiating. So we're differentiating ourselves from our parents, and that's that separation. So it's that move. But quite often what happens when we move as an adult, we are then separating ourselves. We're differentiating ourselves from our family and friends. We're creating a new life. We're trying to own it. We're moving on. Sometimes it gets jammed. So that's that. And the other thing I want to look at is the grief gauge, if there's anything here. Yeah, okay. So in the grief gauge, which I'm sure you've done work on, it's up the top and it's in the bargaining phase. So still trying to own your space in the world. And yeah, so bargaining is often about those things like I said before about the being over apologetic, except I know that's not what you said in your stuff, but it's almost like conceding to other people and condition making and always undermining what you want in order to have friends or have family or have whatever it is you need. So it's about boundaries as well.
And surrendering your will, like, I don't know why the change had to happen, but it's like you had to go along with it. Like,
Yeah.
this is what it is,
Yeah.
I'll do it, but...
Yeah, compromising just showed up.
Surrender,
yeah. So you're stuck in the grief gauge, still in that compromising phase. So regardless of whether or not you owned it or not and said, yep, this is my life too, I'm going along with it and I'm happy, your subconscious brain still isn't there yet. Now the flower essence is showing up. Sinou's getting her morning brandy here. So yeah, wild potato bush, Australian bush flower essences.
I wouldn't be surprised if this whole thing's affected her crown chakra, because there's a lot of pain going on.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't checked the chakras yet.
There's a lot of bits of pain going on around that.
Well, it keeps being escape, submission, freeze. So the brain's wanting to run away. Let's go have a look. Yeah. Okay. So crown chakra. In cranial kinesiology, connects to the palatine bone and the thymus gland. But it also, even though it's the crown chakra, it still connects to the pineal gland as well, which is about seeing and feeling and owning your future. But it's stuck in an old pain and punishment circuit. But if your celestial circuit has been out and it's still trying to jump, then there's that lack of connection between your conscious and, so your central meridian and your governed meridian, so your conscious brain and unconscious brain. And so your crown chakra hasn't been probably feeling solid and protecting, and it's probably just been all over the shop, allowing everyone else's stuff just to jump on in. Yeah, like in Ghost. Yeah, so the crown chakra being weak is connected to a pain and punishment circuit. How's it feeling?
A little bit better.
Do you ever say, I choose to be an empath?
I don't think so.
Because you are, and you see it as a challenge, whereas you're choosing to do it now for a living as well. So maybe owning it as your choice might take some of the emotional trigger off. Just a thought. So it gives you more choice in what clients you take on. No, still in the pain and punishment, it wants a little bit more. Do we need another flower essence? We do.
Thank you, Marisa.
Yeah.
Actually, flower essences are fantastic. I don't know whether you have them, can get them there, but they're just a godsend.
The next one showing up is grey spider flower. It's for terror, night terrors. It's for when your subconscious is not dealing with stuff during the day, so it's trying to sort it out at night time.
One of my favourites. Also spiritual shock, like if energetically someone's whacked you, your body's, what the heck happened? But nothing physical happened, but energetically it's got whacked. There's that spiritual shock of that.
And don't forget when you get your blood work done by the doctors, because it's not a bad idea to have a functional medicine doctor who will do blood work that is useful for you. So here in Australia, when we want to get our thyroids checked, the only thing doctors will do is free T4 and TSH, so the thyroid stimulating hormone, whereas free T4 really doesn't mean anything. You've got to know your free T3 and you've got to know your reverse T3. So if you know your reverse T3, that's a sign that your body isn't converting T4 to T3. It's turning into a toxic form of T3, which is creating inflammation in your body. And once again, if your reverse T3 is quite high, then that can be impacting on your ability to lose weight because your thyroid simply won't be working. And once again, that's when autoimmune paleo, like even month about, you know, sort of 1 month going really strict and then relaxing for a month and then one, because it's hard. It's not easy to do autoimmune paleo, especially when we're already doing a healthy lifestyle. But because your periods are all over the place, there could even be that thing, MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome. Actually, I might check that because histamine does build up in the uterus. So let's just check in relation to MCAS. It might have nothing to do with it. And hold. Okay. Hold. No, it's not looking like that. Okay. Good, good, good. No, easy peasy. So let's go into your survival patterns. Anything else before we? Okay. So EMC, MMC, PVSS, so periventricular survival system, which is about your sensory nervous system being overloaded. Okay, so the first thing that's shown up is when these stresses get really heightened, your body is, it probably feels a bit like anxiety, because it's when the body's just got that huge amount of acetylcholine whizzing through your body, which is like a triple shot of coffee, and that's creating vigilance in the nervous system. So the nervous system's just going to be expecting stress long term. But you know that cortisol, adrenaline, noradrenaline, they're all key in laying down tummy fat particularly. And that gets really hard to move, especially as we get older and our estrogen starts getting all over the place. Okay, so the next one showing up is because there's noradrenaline running, so your body's assuming long-term stress, it's activating kidney 1 in this circuit that's to do with directing attention. So then your brain gets stuck focusing on some things that might not be the important things. So the important things are to take care of ourselves and nurture ourselves and love ourselves and our family. But then we get stuck. We get stuck in all the emotional garbage and it doesn't really help us move forward. Or it can be on those days when you're trying to, you know, watch your food and all you can think about is your packet of chips, you know, so that then that focus just doesn't leave. It can be just basically directing attention to the wrong thing, and that being quite exhausting to our nervous system. Okay, so at this point we've whipped into needing so it's sort of jammed, and it's not saying it needs a correction yet, but it's also not saying there's anything wrong in the PVSS, which may or may not be the case. Nonetheless, there's psychological reversal going on at this point. Want, need, think, safe, believe, deserve. Okay. Sounds classic, but it's safety and trust. It is safe to let go of this problem. And I trust I can let go of this problem. And hung up. Okay, so the boundaries are up. Perimenopause can bring on the Moro reflex as well, so I don't know whether you've seen that video, but maybe go check it out. I sort of just do the Moro, but I also talk about what it does. It takes a minute to do morning and night. It's a primitive reflex exercise. that helps to connect the front and rear of the brain. So it gets those conscious and unconscious pathways. It helps to reconnect those pathways in the brain. And because it helps to tone our core, so because doing the exercise actually makes the core muscles work really well, it strengthens the muscles around all our abdominal organs over a period of time. Okay, so now that I've got the survival patterns, there's psychological reversal in there. A couple of more little areas are showing up in the PVSS, and the first one showing up is the anterior cingulate gyrus. So this is that part of your brain picking on yourself that you're not as perfect. I was going to say perfect, and I thought, well, yeah, but not as perfect as you were 11 years ago. So your brain is picking on you on a daily basis at the moment.
What you think you should be.
Yeah. And hold out.
Yep.
And then it sets up all sorts of obsessions and compulsions. Once again, this is the part of the brain that I believe is really there from caveman days, because 10,000 years ago, people lived in groups of 20 to 30 people. So therefore, from the time you were 2, 3, 4 years old, you pretty much knew who you were going to marry in the little tribe, because everyone else was your brother or your father or someone. So there was very few people who you could actually marry, so you just knew. But if you broke your arm and couldn't make baskets, or if you had your foot chopped off by a leopard, and you couldn't climb the trees to get the berries, you were sort of messed up a bit. So this part of the brain is constantly working out where we are in the hierarchy of society, and it's part of the reason why we pick on ourselves when we don't look as perfect as other people, because we want to be on that hierarchy of social climbing as close to the top, because 10,000 years ago that was about eating and sleeping and living, whereas these days it's not so important. And surviving.
If you had a disability, you couldn't survive, and that often just turf us out.
The next one showing up, hold out, is the subclausal gyrus. This is the one to do with it's to do with genetic rage and anger that internalizes as depression.
Before rage and anger, I was going to say that it is showing that.
Okay. Yeah, so kidney anger, that whole fear and anxiety in the kidney adrenal meridian, it feeds into the rage and anger. And sometimes it doesn't come out very often, but occasionally when it does, you really, really know about it. But it's because the pleasure reward centers have been switched off, and once again, when we're gaining weight, that abdominal fat mass can actually start to release those stress hormones that switch off our serotonin and dopamine. So it makes it harder to relax and enjoy and have fun. Which is why something, when you're trying to lose weight emotionally, is so important. It's almost impossible. Well, no, it's not impossible, but it's hard. It's jolly well hard if you're not doing something emotional in the background. Escape submission freeze. Then it's showing up, excuse me, more, release. Then I need to go into the parahippocampal gyrus. So to do with the emotional memory, because it's showing up that this is all messed with your self-worth, self-esteem, which in turn is then messing with your ability to remember that, it's sort of messing with the stuff you know. So it starts to undermine everything we know. Our intuition. So it messes with that big time. that's because of the pain punishment circuit that your brain's been stuck in with the move. Okay, so no other organs are jumping up and down, which is good. The PVSS is showing up as clear, the periventricular survival system, so I'll go conscious and just double check some of those pathways in the brain. Right. So the brain's working quite well, except for the fact that when you're feeling sad, despondent, depressed, it shuts down the frontal cortex. And cortisol does that as well, shuts it down. So when we're running on stress hormones, it shuts it down, our memory isn't as good, and that gives us another reason to pick on ourselves. And hold out. Okay. Then it's the chicken and the egg. You know, so which comes first? Is it the cortisol being released from the tummy fat that's switching off the frontal cortex? Is it feeling sad, despondent, depressed because your life's different now that's switching off your pleasure reward centers? That is adding to the cortisol, which is adding to the weight. Auditory integration points are showing up, so that'll be either self-talk or going over and over and over stuff that other people say about you or to you. Oh.
I kind of really jelly arms because I can't even lift them.
And no surprise, that's also created another pain and punishment circuit. Or the pain and punishment circuit is linked to that self-talk. Don't know if you've read that cute little book by Susan Jeffers, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And obviously Susan died, I don't know, 5-10 years ago or something now. But the little book is a really quick, easy read if you haven't done it. And the page that I particularly like, there's a grid of nine parts of our lives. And it talks about, well, if you don't have lots of these little and they're all sort of like my spiritual life, my work life, my family life, my friendships, my hobbies, you know, and it's got these 9 things. And if you don't have at least half of them going well, then if something falls apart, or if all of your energy is in work, or if all of your energy is in family, then if something falls apart, you don't have a backup. It's like in the movie Love Actually. No man's an island. You need at least 3. Okay. Rip and lip as well. Okay, so that's integration with all of your ingoing and outgoing visual and auditory memory centers. Piece of cake. And hold. Okay, so we'll be wrapping up in a sec. But that's 2 things there. So it's like your brain doesn't want to remember stuff, but by not wanting to remember stuff, it's also not laying down the new memories in your new happy place. So when we've got stress hormones whizzing through our brain, that affects where our memory centers are being set up. So even if you have a good, beautiful, perfect day, your brain can still be storing those memories in the stress part of the brain, so it actually creates a little bit of stress when you remember it, even though there may have been nothing, or not a lot wrong with the day. It's sort of like you have a beautiful day at the beach, and instead of remembering the sunshine and the fresh air and the laughter of the kids and all that sort of thing, you remember the hot sand and getting sunburned and the chips were soggy or something. So hormones make a big difference on how we lay down stuff. Okay, so I'm going to, because I know obviously you'll have totally different supplements to what we have, but what I want you to do is make a list of anything that I mentioned and go research them, and I'll sort of see whether or not there's some specific things that will help you out. Okay. Let's go have a look. Femex. Okay, so the big things in Femex are stuff like broccoli seed extract to help to detox. Things like broccoli seed extract help to switch on your inflammatory pathways and switch on your detox pathways if you get them in big enough doses. So we've got, there's a product in Australia called Meta-3C. There's things called Indolplex and stuff like that. Femex also has a similar ingredient. There's things like Brock shots that have got those. So just sort of, but it's about broccoli seed extract. You can make your own broccoli seeds or your broccoli sprouts. Eat those. But Femex also has hormonal balancing herbs in it. Oh, here's a few. Yeah, something for your blood sugar would be a good idea. So there's a herb called gymnema. Gymnema is called the sugar killer, and it's not because you've got a sweet tongue, because I know that it's not to do with that. It's about the body needing to re-establish the sweet, sour, salty taste. And it also helps to regenerate pancreas, because insulin will really mess with our hormones as we get older. Zinc. Okay, well, zinc's important for everyone. Get a good form of zinc, like a zinc citrate or something like that. But basically, and genetically we have to be lucky to be able to digest it, but assuming you can digest it. So zinc helps to create estrogen in the first half of the cycle. No, sorry, it detoxes estrogen in the first half. It creates progesterone in the second half. It's also involved in the conversion of T4 to T3 with your thyroid. But once again, a good multi-mineral wouldn't be a bad idea.